Hey there, it's Paige here from the Impact Copywriter and the Sales Funnel Shop. And today I'm going to walk you through how to set up a simple welcome sequence automation. And let's start by discussing what type of welcome sequence we're talking about, for the purposes of this demo. Now, if you do a quick Google search and you look up some how-to articles about how to put together a welcome sequence and things like that, then you'll see that people talk about welcome sequences in like a variety of ways. So people talk about a welcome sequence that's really a sales sequence where you actually sell something at the end. And then you have people who talk about a welcome sequence like it's a 5-day challenge or like it's a free course. I have other demo videos for those specific purposes. So, if you want to build a, small sales sequence, then, look at that video. If you want to build a 5-day challenge, look at that video. If you want to set up like a free course funnel, look at that video. Most often I see welcome sequences as, individual emails, somewhere around 5 to 7 emails. But the goal is to give a new subscriber more touch points with your brand. Multiple touch points increase your trust factor. So that's the type of welcome sequence I'm going to talk about in this video. So, what it looks like is you'll have either two ways for getting on this list. The most common, especially with people just starting out in email marketing, where they're using a sign up for my newsletter style lead magnet is option B here. So people will actually opt into a newsletter, and instead of getting a freebie or a lead magnet or a training, in the freebie style funnel, they'll just get, sent emails. So they'll move into that welcome sequence. So in that option, so option B here, they would join your newsletter list, and that would trigger an automation. So maybe immediately they get one email, maybe 2 or 3 days later, they get another, 2 or 3 days later, they get another, and so on until you've sent the whole sequence. So inside those emails, you can include like a link to join your Facebook group. So you want to encourage that touch point. So come on over and join us on Facebook where we have other conversations. You might send them to related freebies. If they joined a newsletter and you think they might be interested in these freebies you have, then you can send them to those. And that's how you tag them and send them into other funnels from the welcome sequence. You could also send them links to videos, whether they're on Facebook or YouTube or embedded on your website. So that's another touch point you could consider creating for your new subscriber. You can send them to blog posts. So if you're not using video, if you're using audio and you've got podcasts embedded, or if you're just writing or doing some demonstrating that way, you can send them to blog posts on specific topics. Or you can send them to like your webinar registration. If that's a core tool that you're using for selling inside your business, then that might be one of the touch points that you send them to so that they see your face, so that they get to, take advantage of something you're teaching, so they add more trust that way. So really, there's not one goal in this welcome sequence blueprint like in other videos that I've demoed. We're just trying to get multiple touch points to increase that trust, but we're also trying to promote the things that are most important for your business and most helpful for your subscriber. Sending different types of freebies and videos and blog posts in different categories that are relevant for the things that you sell. So say if we're talking about my business, sending something on sales pages, on emails, on ads, because those are different types of deliverables I write, then I would send, for a general welcome sequence, I would send resources on all those topics. That way, when someone clicks on something, then I can tag them as interested in sales pages or interested in emails or interested in ads. So that's helpful later on. So you want to make sure that you're sending like a range of different types of resources. Now, at the end of that sequence, then of course you decide, well, do they continue into another automation, which is the next step? So maybe it's if they haven't taken action on anything to where they enter a funnel, then you may decide, well, if they haven't, joined a freebie funnel to where they're in that path, or they haven't signed up for their webinar, maybe the next step is, well, we send them into the webinar promo sequence. So that'll depend on what your bigger funnel looks like. Now, the most common option for starting this email sequence for option A is when you're a little bit more advanced and you're using more of a freebie funnel strategy to where you're offering freebies on the front end in different areas, surrounding different problems or outcomes with your messaging. Then you don't use really the newsletter offer, because that's, that's the least attractive offer is the newsletter. So you might have, a freebie that they sign up for. You use the freebie funnel that I demoed in another video, which is simply a delivery email. And at the end of that freebie funnel, you send them into the welcome automation. So I'm actually going to show you what that looks like, because I know it's a bit difficult to conceptualize, with just looking at this screen, but I'll show you in real life what that looks like. So the point here is that you have two ways to start the automation, either by them joining a newsletter list or by you triggering this automation from another automation with the start an automation action inside of your automation builder. Before we move on, let's talk about tools. Now, for this automation specifically, you're really only going to need one core tool, and that is an email service provider that supports automation. A second tool you might need if you're using a landing page, like for your subscriber opt-in page, then you'll need a landing page builder tool. So something like Divi or Elementor, which is what I use, or Lead Pages or ClickFunnels, or there are lots of options out there. So some way to build landing pages. Okay, now let's start by looking at what the big picture, once it's set up, what does it look like inside ActiveCampaign? And we'll talk about the few core pieces that you'll need to make this automation work. So the first thing you'll need is a trigger action, and that tells the automation when to start. So remember, back in our map discussion here, we had options. So two options. So a subscriber can either join after they finish a freebie automation, and we can set that up inside the freebie automation. Option B is that they can join a newsletter list, and that will trigger the automation. So you can add multiple triggers for an automation. So if you're using the option B to where they're subscribing to an email newsletter list, then you can add the subscribe action as a trigger. So when a contact subscribes to a specific list, then the automation begins. If you're using that method of getting people on your list, then that is the start trigger action that you'll use. Now, if you're using the freebie funnels, which I'm going to demonstrate how to connect those together towards the end of this video, then you won't need a trigger, because you're going to set that trigger up inside the freebie funnel automation. So now you're looking at the simple freebie funnel that we set up in another demo video. And you can see here at the end, I've added a start an automation action at the end of that automation. So once they hit this point in the automation, they're going to be added to any automation of my choice. So that's how we would trigger the welcome sequence without having a start trigger, because we can trigger it inside another automation. So that's option A. The next thing you're going to need are emails, obviously. So if you're sending, somewhere between 4 to 7 emails, then that's what you'll need. So for our demo purposes, we had 5 emails. So you can see we have 5 emails here. The third thing you're going to need are wait actions, because you don't want to get the subscriber to get all the emails at once. So the first email you want them to get immediately, but the, second through, whatever number emails, you want there to be some kind of cushion between getting those emails. Now, because this is a welcome sequence with no specific sales goal, we're just trying to increase touch points, then I have, for the purpose of this demo, I have added a wait action of 2 days. So you'll have to customize this depending on what makes the most sense for you. The fourth piece that you'll need for this automation is an end this automation action, which simply tells the automation that this is over with. We've done everything we need to do. And then towards the end of the video, I'm going to show you how to connect this automation with another automation if you have a next step. So actually what that looks like is what I just showed you previously, is you have a start an automation or enter an automation action, and then you select another automation to add people to. So I'll show you how to connect this automation to other automations moving forward if you do have a next step like a webinar promo sequence. Okay, now let's build it. I am in ActiveCampaign. In the automations part of my dashboard, I've clicked on create an automation here at the top, and it's launched the automation wizard. We're going to select start from scratch and continue. So I'm going to show you how to set up option A, which is we're starting without a trigger. And if you were using option B, which is someone subscribing to a newsletter list, then you would add subscribes to a list trigger here. I'll demo that at the end so that you know how to set it up. But for now, we're going to start without a trigger and just move through and set up the rest of the automation, and then we'll add the trigger at the end. Okay, so now we have our automation canvas. This is where we'll start when we start building any automation in ActiveCampaign. The first thing I want you to do is to name the automation in a way that is clear and descriptive of what it represents. For the purpose of this video, I'm going to name my automation the welcome sequence demo because that's what it represents for me right now. The next thing we're going to do is add emails. So under sending options, drag send an email into your automation. This is a new campaign, so we'll have to start by creating emails. For now, I'm going to name them something like well one with a semicolon. And then I'll add kind of the topics in later once I'm clear on the content for this sequence. When we add an email to an automation and we select create a new email, then ActiveCampaign is going to launch its kind of email builder wizard. So, we would go into any of the templates or templates you've set up or templates ActiveCampaign's provided to start creating your email content. You'll go in there, you'll input your email content, make modifications to the design settings, and so on. When I'm setting up a new automation, I always set up the draft emails first, and then I add in the email content later. So I will set up what I call the automation skeleton. It's the complete automation with everything except the email. So they are draft emails inside the automation. And then once that's set up, I'll go in and add the email content all at once. So I do that all in one sitting, and that's why when I'm building the automation, I set up only the draft email so I can focus on building the automation first, and then I can focus on setting up the emails later. Before I move on, I do want to highlight that I recommend when you start using ActiveCampaign that you go ahead and set up your email templates. So you can see I have 3 here, slightly different email templates, and that will save you a lot of design time later on. So you'll basically just create an email template with some dummy text inside, and you can add, all the design settings that you're going to use throughout all your emails. And so those will preload every time you create a new email. And that will save you tons and tons and tons of time later on as you create email automations, as you create email newsletters, so those live broadcasts, and you won't have to create those design settings from scratch every time. Okay, let's move forward and save and exit. We now have welcome one selected, so I'm going to save this. Now I'm going to repeat that process for emails 2 through 5. Now that we have all 5 draft emails set up, the next step is to add our wait action. So under conditions and workflow, drag the wait action in between any 2 emails. We're going to wait for a specific period of time. And for this demo, we're going to select 2 days. Now remember, you can customize the wait period depending on what makes the most sense for your automation. Okay, notice that we're only using the wait actions in between emails. So we do not have a wait action at the beginning. That's because we want this automation to send the first email immediately. And we don't have a wait action currently at the end, and that's because we're going to add our in this automation. That is underneath conditions and workflow as well. And we don't need a wait action, in between sending email 5 and ending this automation. Perfect. Now our welcome sequence automation is essentially complete. At least the skeleton is complete if you were using option 1. Now remember, option 1 was we're going to trigger a subscriber to start the welcome sequence from another automation. So I'm going to show you how to set that up here in a second. So if we're using option 1, then this sequence is essentially complete. Now, if we're using option 2, which is someone subscribes to a newsletter list, then we need to add a start trigger. So you're going to want to select subscribes to a list, and then you're going to choose the list they're subscribing to. So in our case, maybe it is the systems and ops list. I always run this multiple times just in case someone comes back, into my world and automation, down the road. All right, and now we have our automation set up to suit for option B, which is someone subscribing to your newsletter through an opt-in box or an opt-in page or something like that. So you can also have, if you're using both, actually, you can have this trigger here and you can still trigger the automation from inside another automation. So if you're using option A and option B, this is what it will look like. Now let me show you how to trigger this automation from inside another automation. So let's say you're using a simple freebie funnel. So you have this automation already set up with your start trigger for whatever they're opting in for, be it a PDF or a report or a checklist or a case study or a training video. So you're going to set up this automation to send that resource to them automatically. Now, at the end of this automation, you can modify it so that once they finish getting that delivery email, they go into your welcome sequence. So what we're going to do is we're going to select conditions and workflow, and we're going to drag in start an automation. And then we're going to select our welcome sequence. So now when a subscriber reaches the end of this automation, they'll enter another automation, which is our welcome sequence that we have just set up. The final piece we want to add to an existing automation so that it's a smooth experience is another wait action. And I'm just going to wait for 1 day. Now, the reason I add a wait action at the end before we send them into another automation is because normally the final action or one of the final actions in any automation is to get an email. So because I don't want them getting, 2 emails at once, because essentially that is what will happen if you don't have a wait action to give some cushion. I don't want them getting the final email and then going into this automation and getting the first email at the same time. So because we don't want that, we're going to add a wait action so that the automation will wait at least 1 day. You can have it wait longer if that makes sense for your business, but it will wait at least 1 day before triggering the other automation. So that is how you connect your welcome sequence to any freebie funnel automation that you're already using. Now, we can also use that same exact start an automation process to trigger a next step from your welcome sequence demo. So let's say that you have a webinar promo sequence because that's your main sales tool for whatever you're selling. And after someone finishes your welcome sequence, you want them to go into a promo for that specific webinar. So we'll also add a start an automation action at the end of this automation under conditions and workflow. We'll drag it in, and then we will select the automation that we want to trigger. So for this, we're going to choose our webinar promo demo. So you should already have that set up, and I do have a separate video on setting up a webinar promo. And remember, we also want to add a little bit of wait cushion, so they're not getting too many emails at once. So we'll drag in a wait action. And let's just say we're going to wait for 1 day. And that's it. That's how you connect your welcome sequence to a next step automation for your larger sales funnel. Perfect. Now you have the full automation skeleton set up. And let me zoom out here so we can see all in one view. And you can't read it, but you can see that it's very simple. It's just a straight line. We have all the actions that we need to make this automation work. Our emails are currently in draft form. So the next step would be to, write your email content, go in and set up your emails, test those emails, make sure the formatting looks good, make sure the links work. And once all of those emails have been tested and you approve them, then all you need to do to turn on this automation is click active here at the top. One more bonus tip before I go. A welcome sequence can be helpful for identifying the topics that new subscribers care about learning more. So I recommend that you send resources and touch points on a variety of topics so that you can see what people click on. That shows you what they're interested in and gives you better insight into what paid products and programs you have that would be aligned with this customer's interest. So you can use that kind of information based on what they click on, to send them into relevant funnels. So that's why you'll want to use a text link strategy inside your emails. So you're sending them to specific links, whether that's your Facebook group or YouTube videos. And when you set up that link in ActiveCampaign, you can add specific actions. You can subscribe them to lists. You can add tags. I recommend you use interest tagging with the emails in your welcome sequence, because when someone clicks on a link, you can add tags based on what they're interested in. So that is a simple way that you can learn more about subscribers, tag them with relevant tags based on what they click on, the emails they click on in their welcome sequence, that will help you point them to the right products and services for them later on. That's it. That is our simple welcome sequence automation. Good luck setting up yours.